Electrocast.
There's a change happening in the way we live, the way we work, the way we spend our money and make our decisions. We are evolving to be more conscious in our actions in a way that serves the world and makes it a better place. Welcome to the Ethical Evolution. The Ethical Evolution podcast is brought to you by Ethical Change Agency. I'm Bindi, I'm the founder, and my mission is to help ethical entrepreneurs and holistic healers to find their voice through spiritual coaching and podcasting. I'm honoured to bring you the stories of those who create change through healing, kindness, innovation, purpose, and spirit. Understanding that to create collective change, we need to be the change. It all begins with us. Andrew Rowe's mission is to guide you on your journey back to your authentic self. He taps into your limitless potential so you can live out your most aligned life. He's here to help you remember your true power and limitless capacity. Join us as Andrew and I explore authenticity, intuition, and healing trauma as we return to love. Welcome, Andrew, to the Ethical Evolution.
Thank you so much for having me, Bindi.
Now, I'm super excited to be with you today. You're joining us from the UK, and we've been chatting offline, having the best time. For those people who don't know you, can you go ahead and tell us?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Andrew Rowe. I am a spiritual healer coach that specializes in authenticity and helping people step into their authentic true selves, which for me means into their soul self. So moving away from the ego and into their soul. I'm Irish, British, and Canadian, born in Switzerland and grew up in France.
You're like United Nations.
You try and remember
in one.
that. You try and remember that because my best friends think I'm Swedish. So...
What a mix. What a mix you are. What a delightful mix you are. Now, what I love about you, like you and I are both on, a very tuned spiritual path. I'm sure we could talk about that for days on end, but authenticity is something that has really bubbled up for me in particular this week. So when you're chatting with someone, or, helping someone to get in touch with who they really are, what's your process?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always get them to fill out a form, so kind of getting a bit of better understanding of, what is limiting them at the moment in their lives. Where do they feel that they're kind of at a standstill, and that starts to give me a bit of a blueprint. And then when I start working with my clients, we have a chat, we go through it. I look at their values and look at, what are the top 10 values that you have in your life, and are you living in alignment to them? So, for example, maybe one of their values is honesty, but they grade it like 4 out of 10 because they're not able to be honest with others. They're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of, they're not able to be honest with themselves. They can't trust themselves. So by going through this kind of more logical approach, when we look at with numbers, quantitative approach, that was what I was trying to look for. It gives the client already a bit of ability to see like, okay, so this is what's going on. And then when it actually comes to like working with my clients, it kind of just, flows and moves and shifts. And so, say for example, my client's like, well, I really struggle speaking my truth. I always look at like, okay, well, look, that's not been the case forever. And this is what people forget. They think, I've always been shy. Bindi, I've always been shy. I'm like, no, you haven't. Because when you were maybe 1, you weren't shy. It's just beliefs, conditions, traits that you've picked up because of your environment. And so I help them go back a lot to their childhood to look at like, first for them to see, well, actually, yeah, there was a moment when I was in, preschool and I was laughing and running around. And it's like, well, what's happened? And so then we kind of break down and understand, well, look, you had a very controlling mother, actually an overbearing mother that like was trying to take away that fun from you because she felt like it wasn't safe, or whatever it may be. And so when I'm working with my clients, it always starts with like looking at the energy that's going on within the body. So feeling like, where are you feeling this, right?
Yes.
Let that be the kind of the portal to the next stage, because this is such an interesting thing. As human beings, we do not have the ability to release trauma. Animals, they shake it off. So if you see a gazelle being chased by a lion, yeah, and then the gazelle like escapes the lion, it will literally shake off the trauma and then just go graze its little, grass like nothing's ever happened. But with us, we take it and we lock it in our bodies because we don't know how to let go of it. And then, hey, energy doesn't go. It doesn't disappear. It gets stuck in different parts of our system, usually in our chakras, but then we can also feel it in different parts of our body as well. And so that's why I always start with, where are you feeling it in your body? And then that then brings us to like, oh, okay, like I'm feeling anger in my heart at, a 8 out of 10. And it's like, well, why are you angry? Well, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, well, let's expand that anger and then allow your unconscious mind to bring you back to memory where you first felt this anger. Where did you first feel angry like this? Oh, it was when my mom told me that I wasn't allowed to go out and play with my friends. And so then we're like, okay. So then that's the memory that we need to start working on and looking at and helping that little girl or little boy or little non-binary to figure out like, what is it that they were trying to learn in that moment? Because that's the only reason the trauma is still replaying, and that's the reason the belief is still so present, is because they didn't learn what they needed to learn in that moment, right? And so they made a false understanding. They did exactly what they needed to do to survive. But it's not exactly the truth. And so I help people find their actual truth so that they can step into their authenticity.
Oh, and that has so much power. So much power. I mean, do you find, and I did sound healing for like 2 years, and I know there were times where they were digging for that, that stuff from childhood or whatever it might be, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't connect with it. I couldn't see it. I couldn't understand it. Do you find that a lot of people can't quite connect with that childhood or that first recollection of when that emotion happened?
Good question. No. And I'll tell you why. Because we go so deep into the feeling brings them. And it's not about like finding it. It's about just like allowing it to just come to the surface.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily always has to be the first memory, because yes, that would be helpful, but sometimes it can just be a really, for example, you could have someone who struggles to follow their intuition, okay?
Yep.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's come from their childhood. It actually could be because they made a decision in business where it backfired and they lost a lot of money. And so then they're like, no, I can't do that again. I have to always be logical in my approach, right? And so actually that's the most important memory to work on. So actually for me, when I'm working with my clients, whatever memory comes up, whatever that sensation comes up, is the most important, most amazing thing that we need to work on, because our unconscious mind is here to support us. It's just constantly, it's a computer trying to process things. So if something comes up to the surface, it needs to be seen. And I think that, and sometimes it will lead us to somewhere deeper, right? So maybe it will be like, it's like a kind of a who are those two people with the gingerbread house? What are their names? Not Jack and Jill. I don't know. It's like little crumbs.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so like you get taken on this little journey until you get to like, oh wow, this is actually what's taking place. But yeah, I've had some people who struggle with visualization.
Yep.
They really find it difficult to and actually this type of work really requires you to be able to visualize.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't have to see, but as long as you're feeling it, as long as there's some kind of sensory experience. And if you've had a trauma, I just want to really explain that it doesn't mean like a horrible thing. A trauma could be some really minute thing.
Yeah.
doesn't have to be something really bad, but it was still traumatic in that moment. If that you've had a trauma, you will remember it. Your body will remember it. You know what I mean?
And
Unless it's like a really deep trauma, and then that's a bit harder, more repressed.
yeah, and it's interesting because just a few days ago, I was a guest on another show, and it was a very personal interview, and they asked me, like, when was the first time you remember that, you saw boundaries were not held in place. And what came out of my mouth was something that I'd never said before, never recognized, never understood until that very moment in that interview. And I was like, whoa, so it's really, I think, right time, right place as well has a little bit of an element here, like you have to be ready to face that kind of stuff as well. Because if you try to force it, like it's not going to come through. And, like there's so much conditioning that we have, like you were alluding to before, that we just are unconscious of everything that makes us who we are today. Like we lock so many things away, we black them out, we forget them until we actually stop and we listen and we face our past and the things that make us who we are today.
I mean, look, I had a client of mine who had an issue around, mother, and told me that they would never be able to overcome that. They said, it's a mountain I can't climb. It's not going to be possible. And I said, listen, you said that about other things before, and look at you now.
Yeah.
So maybe this is just that extra challenge, and when there's that willingness, and when the space is safe, and they feel really like that there's a safe space and that they can open up and be vulnerable, anything is possible. And yes, it does require us to sometimes have to take out the wool over our eyes, or take off the rose-tinted glasses, and actually see the truth of what that relationship is, or was, rather than being like, oh no, it's all fine, it's all great. Because, at the end of the day, not every relationship is all fine, is all great. You're contending with another human being who has their conditions and their belief systems. So of course there's going to be some polarity. Of course there's going to be some sort of conflict. And so to say, yeah, my childhood was great, my mother was amazing, that's just putting your head in the sand. It's like, and this is one of the things I always say to like my clients and people who want to work with me. I say, I'm not here to demonize your parents. I'm not here to, that's the complete opposite. What I am here to help you see is that no one is perfect, and people make mistakes. But in order for you to get to a place where you can let go of your resentment, let go of your anger, let go of all of this negative feeling that you're feeling, you have to come to a place where you realize that that's the truth. You have to come to the place that your parents are imperfect, and that they are human beings as well. And within 3 sessions, we climbed that mountain and shifted what needed to be shifted. But as you were saying, Bindi, it requires that person to have that confidence and courage, and to know that actually, you know what? It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to start to see this person. It's going to be like a journey. You're going to start seeing this person for who they truly are. But because of the work that you're doing, you're also going to see that they're coming from their own conditioning, and that they aren't doing it because they're malicious or vindictive, but because they are hurting. And so they only know how to hurt people, right?
Yes.
And so it's this beautiful kind of, I don't know, like kind of synchronistic experience where everything just starts to harmonize when you start to see, the patterns of humans, and that everything is action, reaction. Oh, this is fun.
You guys can't see this, but Andrew's doing a little bit of a rolling motion with his hands. He's rolling in the deep there.
I'm creating like a ball of energy. I love it.
But it is true, it's action, reaction, and emotion is all part of it. And again, I've been having a lot of conversations about our parents and how they impacted us to who we are today. Like, it doesn't mean that they were bad, doesn't mean that they weren't great parents. It's just they were doing the best they knew how to do. Like, they had their own conditioning and they did the best they knew how to do with what they had. So like, there shouldn't be any shame around that. There should be nothing but love for them because they tried the best they could. And by getting those things out in the open, it's by no means, saying they were bad. It's really just recognizing what impact it had on you and how you can let that go and actually grow,
And forgive, right? And I think that especially one thing that I've realized is you can love without having to have someone close to you. So actually sometimes loving someone is letting them go.
Yeah.
And, you may have a parent that's narcissistic and was abusive, and you part of you wants to keep them in your life, but actually the healthiest thing for both of you is to create really firm boundaries, forgive them, but release them and be like, they're on their journey. I've done my healing work. I know where I am. I know where I stand, but they haven't. Maybe they're still where they need to be. And me setting these firm boundaries is good for both of us, and they can learn that way. It's about letting go of the rhetoric that you may have been saying of, oh, she's such a effing bitch, or, she's this, she's that, or he's so da 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 da, because you're just actually adding fuel to the fire. Words cast spells, right? It's called spelling for a reason. So if you're constantly saying that, you're actually you're feeding that person's pain body through energy, and so then that person is just keeping on that flex. That's why when you hear people forgive someone, that's why there's such massive shifts that happen within the relationship. I remember when I had my first kind of going through my spiritual awakening and everything, and was at a retreat and had my Reiki attunement, and there was this moment where I really forgave my parents, or I got to a place where I was like, you know what? It was really just the surface, but I was just, you know what? Like they're not bad people. They did their best. Da, 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 da. And I kid you not, 20 minutes later, I received a message from my mum saying, oh, your father and I have been thinking about you and wanted to say, how proud we are of you. And I was just like,
yep.
Oh my gosh. But and if anyone says to me that energy doesn't exist, it's like, well, how do you explain that?
Yeah.
You're unlocking these doorways that you are not even aware of through letting go of the negative energy and through forgiveness. I think it's just such a powerful thing.
That is so beautiful. And, I think, coming back to forgiveness and boundaries, like, if you can stick to those, it's really is teaching people how you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And if they can honor that and respect that, then, everything's going to be okay. But without enforcing those boundaries, it's you stand for something or you fall for it, right? So it's really, if you can keep that boundary in place, like, it's life-changing. It really is. If people go, oh, I can't do that to you anymore, or we can't go there, or we can't talk about that, or I can't say that anymore, that is life-changing, and it can change a whole relationship. I know I've been like that with some of my family where I've just gone, you know what, when you say that, it makes me feel like this, so can we not do that anymore because it's not nice. And it has changed things. They either go, oh, well, too bad, get over it, or I go, all right, well, then I'll remove myself from that situation because you're not going to change. I'm changing, you're not. So
I have a really interesting kind of it is kind of linked to boundaries, and I think my mum won't mind me like sharing this. But we were watching a TV show, and it was like a silent witness TV show, and it was about these trans people being killed. And then at the end of it, my mum says, oh, I just don't understand. I was like, what do you mean you didn't understand the TV show? She goes, no, I just don't understand why people would do that to their bodies. It's wrong. And I was like, okay, you're being transphobic right now. And I was like, hey, Andrew, you've got two options here. You can either be part of the problem and keep quiet, or you can address the problem and just say, look, this isn't okay. And so I said, Mum, you can't say that. Like,
Yeah.
that's transphobic. No, it's not. It's just my opinion. I said, okay, well, what if they were Black people and you said that it was wrong for them to be on screen? Would that be racist? Well, yes, it'd be racist. I said, okay, so is that not the same thing? Well, no, it's not. I said, okay, I'm gay. What if it was a gay person and you said, well, oh yeah, it's wrong and they kind of deserve what they're getting? She said, well, no, don't be so stupid, Andrew. Of course I wouldn't say that. I said, well, there's no difference. You're not seeing it. And she goes, oh, Andrew, just stop it. And I said, Mum, I'm not attacking you. She goes, yes, you are. You're attacking me. You always attack me. I said, look, Mum, I said, I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying you have this opinion because you know nothing about trans lives. Why don't you spend some time researching what it's like to be trans, what it feels like to, wake up and hate your body and want to change it, and what it feels like to be trans and how scary it is. And once you've done that, once you've educated yourself, then you have the right to have an opinion. And she said, she just went quiet, and that was the day. And the next day, and this is so beautiful, the next day I was in my office and she comes in the morning and she goes, Andrew, and I was like, yeah. And she goes, I really want to apologize for what I said yesterday. I said, it's okay, Mum, these things happen. She goes, I just spent an hour and a half researching trans lives and I can't believe what they have to go through. And it's just so sad. And I'm just so sorry that I said those things. And I was like, you know what? Don't worry, because maybe you needed to say those things to get to a place to then be able to accept, but because I set my boundaries really clear about what I believe in and what I think is right and what is wrong, it actually helped her heal on some level. But it's scary. Boundaries are scary. You're going to ruffle a few feathers, but in the long run, you're going to help yourself and help others.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love what you've done there, and the outcome as well. Like that is a successful outcome. They're not always successful. Can I just say?
Not always successful.
I've had very similar conversations, but with a very different outcome because the opinion's greater than the change in attitude. So, there's acceptance and there's ignorance. It's kind of like you can only go so far with some people. So. Sure. I love what you've done there, and the fact that your mum actually went, you know what, you're right. I need to check myself and I need to actually educate myself. And I think that's the thing, is that a lot of people, in terms of acceptance and understanding, they just don't know. They've got their own worldview, they've got their own opinion. They don't want to actually put themselves in someone else's shoes and go, well, what if that was me or one of my kids or, someone I love? What would that be like?
Yeah.
And this all comes back to the mission of this whole podcast, Andrew, is, the change begins with us. So, instead of us pointing a finger at someone else, how about we point it at ourselves and go, well, what can I do differently? How can I look at this a little bit, differently? And that's what I love about these conversations, is that we can open people's minds and have them think about their decisions and their thoughts a little bit differently. But
Absolutely.
One of the things I love about what you do is you talk a lot and you focus a lot about intuition. And it's one of my favourite things to talk about because I like to think of myself as a bit of a master in that area. People say to me, oh, you've got a crystal ball. And I'm like, no, I don't. But I have a very strong intuition. So people nickname me Queen Bee, and I apparently have a crystal ball. So, there's times where, and it's kind of freaky because people will say something and I'll already know the outcome, and it's based on my intuition. It's funny, my phone will go off and I already know what it's going to be or who it is before I even look at it. I just know, I know. It's almost a little bit psychic. But
yeah, I mean, it is psychic. It's not a little bit psychic, it is psychic.
But in terms of intuition, I also got a bit of a bolt from the blue this week. This week has just been a bit of a shit show, honestly. But I got a bolt from the blue, particularly today, where I was like, if I reflected on my intuition and my decisions that I made in a particular situation. If I had another choice, I would have done it differently. And I probably didn't listen to my gut initially when I made a particular decision, and it's now coming back to backfire. And I've gone, yes, my gut was telling me something and I didn't listen to it. And I was under pressure at the time and I had to push through. And that was why I didn't listen. And now it's backfiring. I should have known better. Yes, it sounds like, is it a Richard Marx song? But intuition is so important in our decision making. Like, if you listen to your gut and just sit for a minute, and I think one of the big things is you just need to stop. You need to stop, quiet the noise, take a deep breath. And I know breath work's a big thing for you too. You just need to stop and listen, right?
I work a lot with my clients around intuition and trusting the universe, because if you want to live your authentic truth, you have to come from a soul, listen to your soul in every moment, right? And if you want to live your most aligned, dream manifested life, you have to listen to your intuition, because, a friend of mine mentioned this, and I now use this word. It's the royal road. And we all have this royal road, and our intuition is constantly trying to bring us to our royal road, because try and say that quickly, really difficult. Tries to bring us to the RR, because it's linked to our higher self, and our higher self wants the best best for us. And the amazing thing about our intuition is, we might make a decision and we don't see the outcome until 3 years later. But that's what is about like fully trusting your intuition without fear. And when I work with my clients, and this may help some people listening, the most common belief systems around not trusting your intuition is you're afraid of making mistakes. So you believe that mistakes are true, and that if you follow your intuition, it's not your intuition, you're going to be punished, or it's going to be the wrong road. Every road leads back to the royal road. Okay. And so even if you don't follow your intuition, there's still going to be an amazing blessing that comes from that, which will be the lesson. And I can give you a really good example of that. Was, as I was telling you, Bindi, when I was in Thailand, I got hit by a pickup truck on the motorway. And this is the truth. What happened was I was crossing the 3 lanes, and my intuition said to me, do not turn right, keep going straight. And but I always turn right. Why would I not turn right? This is, and it was so split second. I could really, within like 4 seconds that I just heard that. And then bang, I get hit by this pickup truck, and like my whole life is just turned upside down, and blah, 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 break my wrist. And really scary moment, near death experience. And I was like, shoot, this is the outcome when you don't listen to your intuition sometimes, right? Positive thing is I learned a lot from it, learned how to surrender. There's some benefits. We can always see the positive at every situation. But what my guide said to me is, they said, you being hit by a pickup truck, because to be fair, just breaking my wrist is getting off quite lightly by, being hit by a very large vehicle on a motorway. They said, this is a representation of what it feels like for your soul whenever you don't listen to it. So you being hit by this pickup truck, the pain you're feeling is what your soul feels every single time you choose to listen to your ego, your fear, rather than love. And I was like, whoa, that is incredible. That makes so much sense. Because actually, if you really feel into your body, when you choose to not listen to your intuition, you feel disconnected.
Yeah.
What happens is you start to feel heavier, you feel irritated, maybe there's an unexplained emotion that comes up, maybe anxiousness, and a real sense of disconnection.
Yeah.
Because what you've done is you've closed that portal, that opening, that connection with your higher self, and you've chosen to come back to your lower self, your ego self, right? So that was a huge lesson for me. And so a lot of people who struggle with following their intuition are afraid of these moments, because they're afraid something bad's going to happen. And hey, getting hit by a pickup truck is a pretty bad thing to happen, but it's all about perception. It's all about your choices, how you want to view things. You get to either beat yourself up, or you get to see it as a lesson and an opportunity to grow and to not make that mistake again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it takes a lot of practice. And, you know,
Yes.
we are human. Sometimes we make mistakes. You and I have both made them recently.
Yeah.
And we're reflecting on that and we learn from it. I think the key thing is that, you know, if we can learn from that and for you to get that message, wow, like that
Yeah.
that is just mind-blowing. Like that'll stick with you forever.
Yeah, and hopefully anyone that listens to it can also just kind of realize the kind of the truth that comes with it, because actually it's dangerous not to listen to your intuition. Well, you just won't live an aligned life. And we see it time and time again, you know, people who pursue careers because of their ego, because they feel like they need to prove themselves, they have to make their parents happy, they have to do this, that, and the other, and then come to their midlife crisis, they're like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I here? Why do I feel so unfulfilled? What is my purpose, you know? And actually, if you want to find fulfillment, start following your intuition. Start following the love that's within you, that light that's constantly there. It's not gone anywhere. It's just unfortunately been covered up by all of this other stuff that you thought was true. And it's so powerful once you crack that code and understand that and start to follow it. But as you said, Mindy, it takes practice. And you know, if you want to learn to listen to your intuition, start off small.
Yeah.
Don't do, you know, big decisions for, like, you know, business or whatever, because it may not be the best thing. But start off small. Start being like, you know, listening to your intuition of what you should have to eat, or, you know, where you should go, or you know, on the weekend, or, you know, just start playing with it. Start being more in that kind of flowy experience of being like, and then it'll be so much easier when you make those big decisions, because you have the proof. You have actual factual proof that every single time you've listened to your intuition, it's worked in your highest and best way.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's probably people listening, Andrew, that are like, oh, well, yeah, that's all very well and good, but like, how the hell do I do that? You know, like, but, you know, it's a feeling, really. It's a feeling that you literally get in your body. So you can ask yourself a question and you just feel it. Like you just know, does this feel right or does it not? Like, is there any resistance here, or does it feel like it's going to flow? And you just know, like it's that gut punch no that you go, yes, yeah, that feels good. I'm going to go with it. And
But for them to get, sorry to interrupt, just for them to get to that place, they have to do all the inner work, right?
yes,
They have to get to a place where they can trust themselves. They can trust their body. They can, you know, they all of these, even self-worth.
yeah,
If you have poor self-worth, how are you going to follow your intuition?
yeah,
You're just going to be doubting yourself all the time, right?
exactly.
And that's why the inner work is so important. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you are welcome. A very, very valid point. And one of the things that came to me as you were explaining that was, I don't know, it sort of feels to me like a lot of people don't really tune into that intuition till they get a bit older. You know, like you hit that midlife crisis and you go, what do I do now? You know? And it was like that for me. But, you know, this can be something that people much younger can tune into and benefit from much earlier than someone like me.
I mean, I have clients who have worked with me. My youngest client was 23 at the time. I mean, that's a substantial investment to be doing at 23 years old.
Yeah.
But the new generation, they're so open, and you know, they've grown up with manifesting and energy and crystals and all of this kind of stuff, like that's in their pop culture. So they're so much more open. Yeah, they also unfortunately are so much more prone to anxiety and depression, but they're also so much more open to finding solutions and changing and not being pulled into the rat race. Because, you know, you were saying a lot of people only tap into their intuition later on. I think it's also to do with spiritual evolution, and how, the new generation that's coming in are already spiritually evolved because they're incarnating in a planet that's spiritually evolving, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So they're already at a different kind of a frequency. But these individuals who have their spiritual awakening or intuition expansion later on in their life, it's because they get so pulled into the egoic principle of materialism. And there's nothing wrong with wanting things and desiring a good life. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's when you get pulled into, I need this to feel worthy. I need to have lots of friends to feel worthy. I need to have the fancy car. I need to have money to feel worthy. And then also getting pulled into the whole, like, going out for drinks and actually the drinking. Like, I also drink, so I don't want to make myself sound like I'm a saint or anything. But the constant drinking is actually just dumbing down what is actually going on within themselves, and so it's that whole amalgamation of everything. And then when you get to that age, I guess midlife, it's like things start to slow down, right? You may have kids or you may not have kids, but things start to slow down. You start to see things from different perception, and you go, I can't drink every night anymore. That doesn't work with me anymore. Oh, shoot. I now have to face my actual thoughts. I actually have to face that I'm actually deeply unhappy within myself and that something needs to change.
Yep.
Yeah.
You actually have to adult one day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you learn that it sucks.
Yeah, it's not the most fun when you have to, do your tax return, pay the bills and all that jazz. But then there's so much fun stuff being an adult as well, right? And I think, just because you're an adult doesn't mean you can't be a kid.
Absolutely. And that is a huge thing. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Have fun.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that you have to snort lines of cocaine off a toilet seat and drink, pints and pints. That doesn't, you can't do that. I'm not saying don't, be yourself, be expressive, whatever. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm just saying that you can have fun in a more, kind of innocent, childlike way. It doesn't have to involve substances that actually dumb down and lower your spirit.
Yeah. And I think, having that element of play, regardless of our age, like that is transformative to our brain. It opens up the whole other side of our brain, and we can inject that into any part of our day, regardless of who we are, what kind of job we have. If you can put that in every day, it's going to just change the whole flavor of your day. If you can put some play in there, have some fun, have a laugh, like that is how you're alive.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Now, Andrew, I reckon I could talk to you all day on a million things, but if people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
So they can go to my website, which is www.andrew-rowe.co.uk, or find me on Instagram, which is at Andrew Rowe. So Andrew ROWE 111. And my Instagram, I do lots of funny videos and I give a lot of free content around belief systems and how you can, change those belief systems and stuff like that. So that's the best way to find me.
Amazing. And I did want to dig a little bit deeper before I let you go on authenticity, because, at the moment, there's World Pride going on. People are celebrating sexuality and their identity. And we both are in the LGBTQ community. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, is being able to accept authentically who they are, regardless of where they are in life and where they show up. What kind of advice would you have for someone who's listening to us and they're really questioning who they are and how they can find it?
The people who are listening who are questioning that already know the answer to that question. And I think it's just being able to be brave and know that we don't need to label things. You know, you don't need to have this kind of like, I fit in this category. You know, sexuality is on a spectrum, and we actually, when we label things, it can make things a little bit more stressful and worrisome. And so if you don't label it, then you can just start to explore. And if then it feels like it's something that feels aligned to you, great. But, you know, if there is fear around that, rather than allowing the fear to eat you up, start to look at, you know, why is that fear present? What are you afraid is going to happen? You know, are you afraid you're going to lose your family? Are you afraid you're going to be persecuted? Are you afraid you're going to lose the respect of your colleagues? Whatever it may be. And then start to make an inventory of why that's not true. Because if it's possible for me, if it's possible for Bindi, and if it's possible for Neil Patrick Harris, don't know why he just came to mind, then it's possible for you. You know, no matter where you've grow up, no matter what your community is, you will find some, you know, if your family don't accept it, you will find a new family. But the most important thing is that you live your truth. Because if you're living a lie, you know, it's going to kill you. And it does for some people, which is really sad. And so just face the fears. You know, you are loved. You will always be loved, no matter what, whether that's with your family or your chosen family or anyone else, you are always going to be loved.
Oh, Andrew, I absolutely love that. You are an angel, an absolute angel. Thank you for that, because, you know, there's one of the things I say to people, and it drives them a little bit nuts, is I hate labels. I absolutely hate labels. And I hate being labelled anything, because I am unique, as is everyone on this planet. We are our own little snowflake, our own little miracle. But I do not love labels. And, you know, whatever you want to call yourself, whatever you identify as, however you want to express yourself, that is completely fine. As long as you can do it safely, I think that is the best thing you can do. Like, don't give a shit about what anybody else thinks. You know, you are you, and be you. That's all you can be, you know, as a human. And I think what you've said there is exactly that, you know, like, don't try and put yourself in one of the LGBTQ boxes. If you don't fit there, that's fine. You know, wherever you fit, however you feel is absolutely normal. And just go with it, explore it, and find you.
Amen to that. Yeah, absolutely. I would leave this podcast with just one quote. I'm pretty sure it's Oscar Wilde that said this. And if it's not, then sorry for your false information. But be yourself, because everyone else is taken.
Oh, yes. 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 Absolutely. I could not agree more. Now, Andrew, I've got the last big question for you. Are you ready?
Go on.
What's a change you'd like to see in the world, and how can we bring it to life?
The first word that came to my mind was compassion. And so I think the change I'd like to see in this world is just more compassion. It starts with compassion for self. So in all those moments where you made mistakes, where you felt like you weren't good enough, where you feel like you don't fit in, just be compassionate with yourself and know that you're on the journey of growth, and nothing can grow if you shout at it, scream at it, you know, be mean to it. It can't. Things flourish with love. And if you can have more compassion with yourself, you then automatically have compassion with others. And then that will create this beautiful ripple effect where more people will love each other rather than hate each other.
Amen. I'm not sure there's anything else that needs to be said after that. Oh, what a blessing you are, Andrew. Thank you so much for being a part of the Ethical Evolution.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Ethical Evolution podcast. If you're ready to be the change and would love to work with me on finding your voice through spiritual coaching or creating your own podcast with impact, visit ethicalchangeagency.com.
Are you passionate about saving the planet for future generations? Do you want to learn how to do it? If yes, then you need to tune in to the Nature Back podcast. It's a talk show covering the changing world around us, from renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, circular economy, to ESG and social innovation. Don't miss this opportunity to discover how you can join the movement and make a difference. Subscribe to the Nature Back podcast today on your favorite platform and get ready to be amazed.
If you're a working professional wondering what's next for your career, you've come to the right place. Whether you're looking for a promotion, growth, or a potential career transition, look no further. With over 30 years working in a variety of industries, I share my insider knowledge with those ready to get ahead on Career Advancement with Craig Ansell. Tune in to get your strategies for success.